Right, what I'd like you to do is if you could come down and put in your wallet and your mobile phone in the basket, please. So, wallet, mobile phone, in the basket, please. You will get them back at the end. No, in the the paper basket. Thank you. Now that's not some secret ploy to make you pay attention, though it might well work. But I just want you to think for a moment, this is not something for you to share, how was that process? The thought of actually having to empty your pockets and put your possessions in a basket. Just think a moment, how did that make you feel? Maybe what are you feeling right now? Just give you a few seconds just to ponder that question. I think deep down, as humans, we're quite torn between our possessions and what really is the meaning of life. Deep down, we know that our mobile phones, our wallets, our credit cards, deep down we know they're fairly inconsequential. And it's usually during times of tragedy or hardship we come to be remembered again that life is more than my iPhone, my BlackBerry and my wallet. And I read much about this in a magazine I was reading recently, where there's this journalist who was living life to the max. And it was during losing her job and most things that she came to see that having healthy relationships with friends and family is what gives me joy now, not a £150 metallic satchel. And there's a lady in America called Gina Roth who lost all her money in the Madoff scandal in 2008. And again, it was through that tragedy of realising I have no financial security, I have no wallet, no mobile phone. She came to realise that deep truth, which we all know really, but life is more than all my stuff. Life is more than all my possessions. But yet, despite knowing this deep truth, we still often hanker after possessions. I don't know if you're aware that in England, the self-storage industry is one of the industries that has beaten the recession and on whole is having year-on-year-on growth. And apparently in the UK we have over 800 major storage facilities, which apparently, when I looked on the website last night, is more than the whole number in Europe combined. Wow. We have a real epidemic here of industrial proportion when it comes to possessions. You probably may have garages, and it's very rare these days that our car is in a garage. It's filled with all our stuff. We have so much stuff we can't even have it in our homes. We're having to pay thousands to people to store our stuff while we buy more stuff. And so this is this kind of deep rupture we have within us of knowing, like Gina knew in America after losing all her finances, that money, it doesn't really matter. My stuff doesn't really matter. It doesn't, but yet we hanker after things. I know for me, this has been a reality in my life. In my 20s, I was living what you could call a champagne lifestyle on a lemonade income. I was going on city breaks. I was dancing at the time, so off to France to perform. You know, we're going to Paris, we're going to Marseille. I was having the latest clothes, and things came to a crunch when I realised I was thousands of pounds in debt. And at this time, I was going to church. I was on the PCC. But I had become slave to my possessions, thinking that if I have more, life will be more. So what does God say to us? What does he have to say to us about this deep rupture within us? On one hand, we know life has to be more than my own. But yet, on the other hand, I like my shiny phone. I like what my credit card can buy me. And I do need clothes after all. So what is God saying to us? Well, we're going to look at a story in Luke's Gospel. And in that story, there is a brother who comes to Jesus with a dilemma. Basically, there's the young brother and the older brother, and they're having argy-bargy over their father's inheritance. They're arguing. The younger brother wants what he thinks is his. So I think he thinks, I know, I'm going to see the top rabbi of the day, the top teacher of the moment, Jesus. Surely Jesus will fight my cause. Surely Jesus will say, yep, you're right, it says in Deuteronomy, yeah, your brother must divide your inheritance. Surely he'll say, yep, I'm right. So this brother goes and asks Jesus, I've got a problem with my brother, basically sort him out with you, so that I can get what is mine. And Jesus, in classic fashion, tells the parable. How deeply frustrating. So if you'd like to join me looking at Luke, I'm going to read from Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 12, beginning at verse 15. Jesus' response to the brother who basically wants what's his, he says to them, that's Luke chapter 12, verse 15. And he said to them, take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. And he thought to himself, what should I do if I have no place to store my crops? So he did what we do in England. He went and got a self-storage unit. He said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build large ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for you for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God. Now, looking at that passage, what do you think the rich man and the young brother have in common? What do you think what attributes, characteristics, what do you think they may have in common? We've got the young brother and the rich man. What do you think they had in common? Greed, yep. Couldn't leave that line, but anyway. Greed, yep.
They both think that they deserve that stuff when actually, in some sense, they just lucked out having an inheritance in the first place or having crops in the first place.
They have more than they need.
Yep.
Party lifestyle.
Have a party lifestyle. Yeah. Others. So I find it quite interesting, their similarities. They were both wanting more stuff. And you have to think to yourself, if the younger brother did get his inheritance, so what? So he got more money. So what? They both wanted more stuff. And just kind of going off tangent a bit, just holding that sense of wanting more stuff, or maybe looking a bit more, they deserve the stuff when they lucked out, which Matt commented on. In terms of gardening, I'm not a gardener, but what do we need, or if we're going to plant a sunflower, what do we need?
Sun.
So we need sun.
Seed.
We need some seed. We need some soil.
Water.
We need some water. Okay. Do any of you have the power for the sun to come up? Can any of you who have discovered the power of precipitation? Do you have maybe we've got an Elijah amongst us. Can any of you make a plant grow just by looking at it? No. And I think the young man, and especially the rich man, they totally forgot that all the gifts they had come from God. It says in verse 16 of this parable that the land produced abundantly. It wasn't the rich man had laboured hard, had talked to them, or laid fertilizer down, had planted them in a perfect place. He had done nothing. As Matt said, he lucked out. But he came to see that this stuff was his. He forgot that actually the abundant crop was a gift from God. The young man, the young brother, forgot that actually the inheritance was a gift. He hadn't earned it. It's probably what his father had laboured for years and years. And yet they thought, this is mine, and I want mine. And I wonder how many of us see our mobile phones, our wallets, our cash, our credit card, our house, the sun on our back, the clothes that we wear as mine, when they are all gifts from God. And the thing is, God says to us, if we have such an attitude, if we accumulate just for ourselves, he says these shocking words. You fool, this is to the rich man, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? Whose will they be? Now that is so... It's shocking to our ears. I was thinking, is it kind of like, we probably think of the rich man as, he's done quite well. Who doesn't want to retire early? Who doesn't want to win that winning lottery ticket and have a beach in the Bahamas? Surely that's what his stuff is all about. Surely God should have said, well done, you've got a pension plan all sorted. I don't have to worry about you starving to death. But he says, no, you fool, because a life of accumulation is no life. A life of accumulation is no life. And that's why God says, you fool. A life of accumulation is no life, because it's futile. It's like Tutankhamun's tomb. We laugh at it now. These pharaohs, entombed, surrounded by their chariots. Sometimes a slave was even entombed in it alive, so you can help him in the afterlife. They've got food and drink. And we look at it now and think, how stupid. A life of accumulation is futile. It's a life of Tutankhamun. We laugh at it, and yet we often live like it. God says, you fool, to the rich man, because the rich man and the young brother have misunderstood the human condition. They have deeply misunderstood the human condition. That what sustains us, what sustains our very being, isn't, yes, we need food and drink and air, but what sustains us is knowing God, being known by him, and loving others. But even if you're not a Christian, you just have to look at the facts to know that a life of accumulation is utterly futile. Oliver James is a clinical psychologist, written a book called Affluenza, saying that we are gripped by this virus of having enough, of having more than enough. And he says this about the state of our mental health. He says that the World Health Organization has found a direct correlation between wealth and the number of people who are depressed. And that in America, the wealthiest country has the highest rates of depression. So even if you take, in a way, God out of the factor, accumulating is not good for our mental or emotional well-being, because that is not what feeds the human condition, and that is why the rich man was a fool. He misunderstood the human condition, that deep down we need to know God, be known by him, and love and serve our neighbours. But also, he was a fool because, as I said, he didn't realise the gifts are from God. He misunderstood deeply the human condition, and he was fixated on his earthly existence. He thought this life is all there is. If this life is all there is, then go ahead and be a pharaoh, accumulate it all, build yourself a big mausoleum and surround yourself with stuff. But life is more than that. So what is Jesus saying to us? What is the question? I think the question is, will you be generous towards me? Will you be generous to those who you know and those who don't know? Will we be like Sam, this lawyer in the book Affluenza, who is going to inherit $20 billion, but he lives on his own, he's a drug addict, and he's not a very nice person to be with? Or will we be like some friends I know, John and Wendy Dodson, who have a permanent sense of joy imbuing them because they spend their life being generous towards God and generous towards others. They're helping, they're providing shelter for those who need shelter. They're busy taking an old person to the hospital if they need to. They just, in small and big ways, they're being generous to God and to others, and they have a life of joy. So maybe for some of us the challenge may be to repent, to say, actually, you know what, God, I'm sorry that I've made it all about me and my stuff when it's yours. Maybe some of us need to look the big issue man in the eye and give him a cup of tea and a greasy sausage roll from Greggs. Maybe some of us are already quite good at giving money away, but God is challenging us to give more. To say, look, I've got your back. I know what you need, but I want you to go and bless others. Maybe some of us need to lift our eyes and say, Lord, show me that vision of heaven so that I'm so caught up about where I'm going, I'm not overly consumed with the here and now. But I just want to give us time to stop and digest and reflect. So I invite you now to come back and pick up your stuff. But as you do so, to take a Bible verse that maybe you can put in your wallet or in your handbag to maybe help you be generous towards God, to remind you that life is more than food and clothing, to remind you that you have an eternal destiny, to remind you that when we are generous towards God and others, we can experience joy and peace because we are doing what we were made to do, to know God, to be known by Him, to love Him and to love others. And if you're wondering what this peculiar kind of looking cross is, this is a Coptic cross, so it's not some voodoo thing for those who might be concerned. But I just wanted to do it as a symbol to pick up your stuff and then in a way take what Jesus wants to give you to remind you it's not about accumulation, it's about knowing me and loving me. Amen. So you want to come down in your own time.